apologize. Okay, welcome everybody to Fieldstone4U. Again, thank you to Melinda. Melinda spoke with our group about a month ago. Content was so rich, we asked her to come back and do it again. And the beauty of these sessions is that we record all of them, and Robin Stropko puts it on our YouTube channel so that anybody can come back and get the information later. So we don't ask people to pre-register. Sometimes we have a couple people on, sometimes we'll have 30 people on, but we know that probably 50 people are going to be accessing this information at a later date. And so that's the beauty of the internet and the beauty of you. We welcome all of you. My name is Robin Sinclair. For those of you that don't, I'm the Executive Director of Fieldstone Leadership Network. I work with Robin Stropko, who's on there waving at everybody. Fieldstone4U, the genesis of this is that people came to us at the beginning of COVID and said, we need specific topics covered. We don't know how to engage our board. We need help on engaging our team. How do we hold our team accountable? Everything specifically to like a small business loan that Janet Buck, who is on the call, was able to help us with and is about to help us with in another week or two. So some of the content has been presented by people within the network, and then we have gone out into the community to get experts to help us with the information as well. So it's just been an incredible experience, and we feel that that's kind of been the silver lining of COVID for Fieldstone, because we have been able to bring more content out into our nonprofit community thanks to all of our nonprofit leaders and community supporters. So thank you to all of you. Housekeeping, just make sure you mute yourself so that we can give our full attention to Melinda. If you're having internet problems, you could even stop your video. What I do typically when we just have one person presenting is I put it on speaker view so that you're not distracted by other people that are jumping on and off of the call. I do ask that you go into your name. If you could rename yourself and put your organization next to it, that will help our speaker know who is on the call. It also helps Robin Stropko because she then also can send the link to you, and it helps her to know who you are. I'd like to thank Janet Buck and First Republic Bank because they're our financial sponsor, and they are the people that help us, and this is why we're able to provide this service to you at absolutely no cost. There are a lot of, not a lot, but there's some organizations out there and people that are doing some content-based webinars around the nonprofit issues, and they are charging, and we do not charge. And we don't charge because Janet Buck and her bank are very supportive of what we do. And we are
you are more than welcome. And I have to tell you, I'm very personally interested in this topic. It's a huge topic right now for the bank. We our volunteer numbers year to date were really down and from the expectation. And so all of a sudden, here we are mid-October, and they are getting people, they're trying to do like all this virtual volunteering stuff, and they're giving people options, and they're saying, hey, everybody needs to do a few hours. And it's just really interesting. So I did want to make a comment that sometimes we look at things from our lens, but if you start to look at it from the donor lens and the needs of your donors and your volunteers, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. This is new for all of us. And so I don't think I've gotten so many emails about doing virtual volunteering, and they're trying to engage us and get some people set up and So there's a lot of power in this.
Great.
And I think we tend to look at it from the lens that we are in, which is how do we engage our volunteers? But everyone's looking for ways to do this right now. So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're not educated. We don't know what we're doing. Just to be clear.
Well, we're all learning. If you could, it's such a small group. I'm sure if you have any questions as Melinda does her presentation, just, raise your hand. And normally I would say put it in the chat, but please just feel free to jump right in. I would like everybody to introduce themselves. Few people. And again, Melinda, just thank you for giving of your time. Again, we'll be recording this and putting it on YouTube so people can access it later. So I'm excited. So Jody, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us your role and what you do and how long you've been there.
Sure. Well, I'm Jody Wills with the Alzheimer's Association, as it now says on the screen. I wasn't sure how to do that, but I figured it out. We're a little new to using Zoom. We used to use something else. So I'm glad to be here. I've been with the association for a little over 4 years, and I volunteered about 3 years before myself before I came on staff. I'm an education specialist, and so I do, in fact, have done 2 programs today already. Community education, so it could be a class on effective communication strategies, the basics of Alzheimer's and other dementias, things of that nature, and also train our volunteers to do that. We have volunteer community educators, and so the association's really ramping up, I'll just say quickly, and wanting to be able to use more volunteers to help us reach a lot more people. And so that's why I'm here. We have some things in place that are working well, and some lingering needs and stuff and issues. So glad to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Mhm.
And feel free to share this with your team afterwards.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. We'll do that.
Virginia.
Hi there, I'm Virginia DePola with Grandma's House. I've been here about a year and a half now. I come from the corporate world. I was with Wells Fargo for 33 years and in charge of the Orange County Volunteer Chapter for Wells Fargo for 33 years. So I feel you, Janet, because I did the exact same thing you're doing for all of Wells Fargo. So I brought the corporate volunteerism to Grandma's House, and I'm able to connect with corporate partners as well as other nonprofits. I've worked with Special Olympics every year, going to all your events, so that was always wonderful. So I'm learning it from the nonprofit side, which has been really, really fun. But we're doing quite well right now, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Janet, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Janet Buck with First Republic Bank, and I wish I was in charge of our volunteers. I'm just one of the voluntoles, or the voluntees that get told. I don't know how that works, but so yes, we're really excited to be with Fieldstone. It's so helpful for me to understand the issues you're dealing with. And I'm going to send a link to all of you right now, if it's okay with you, Robin, because we just announced a Fundraisers Alliance. And I think, Virginia, you may have just been added to our list. Janae sent me an email. So, and we're doing that because we are a private business bank. 40% of our business clients are nonprofits because we're invited there into that space from philanthropists and the donor side. It was usually board members who said, hey, can you help us? And so we ended up creating quite a specialty from nonprofits. And what our new thing is to try to link funders and fundraising and resources that we can bring to bear for that side of the shop. We've always had a Financial Executives Alliance, and that's always for the, the folks that do the banking and the lending and some of that. But we realized with all the nonprofits struggling as much that we launched a Fundraisers Alliance, and where if it's open to everyone, and if it's something of interest, we're trying to figure out how do we link our expertise on the donor philanthropy side with the needs of the nonprofits. And not sure where that's all going to go, but it's definitely Robin's been to, I don't know if Robin's been to any of, but if you've been to any of our events, they do a nice job. So hopefully at some point we'll have them live. So if you guys want to sign up for that, there is a webinar on some aspect of using tools or technology tools tomorrow. And as I said, the content that the bank generally brings in is very interesting and curated. So I'm happy to share any resources that we have.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Melinda, tell us about yourself and let's go.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Melinda, and I have been with Special Olympics. It is 3 years yesterday. So I'm the Senior Director of Volunteer Engagement. And before Special Olympics, I was with a social service agency, Jewish Family Service in San Diego, also as the volunteer director for a dozen years, and have been I've been in the nonprofit sector probably about 17 to 18 years. I also teach a volunteer management class at the University of San Diego as part of their nonprofit certificate program. So I've been doing that for, I don't know, a long time. I can't remember dates. And I also do sit on the board of Hands On San Diego, which is a kind of the volunteer calendar, sign up and show up a lot for corporate groups and whatnot. So you can see my heart is in San Diego, even though I am in Orange County. I was there for a while, but I am from Orange County, so I'm back where my roots are. So I'm really happy to chat with you guys, you all, and just about some of the the challenges that either we've been experiencing at SOSC, but also a lot of the nuggets that we've learned throughout this journey. And I really appreciate how we've all started off, you know, Janet, what you were saying from the corporate side, and same with you, Virginia, and also how you were saying, Jody, about how do we, you know, we're able to reach a lot more of our constituents. And so what we've been doing, I'm just going to kind of start off with what's working well for us. But at any point there are questions or, ooh, let's talk about this instead, please, this time is for all of us. But we have been doing a campaign called Reach Every Athlete. So we've got over almost 30,000 athletes, and obviously we're not able to do our programming, right? We're not gathering, we have no immediate plans to gather, but that leaves our base of our clients. I'm used to on the social service word, our athletes, let's say that way. You know, they, the most vulnerable population that can't gather, it's really hard for them community-wise. This is their community. And on top of that is the layer of volunteers that we have. We have 8,000 plus coaches, plus tens of thousands of volunteers who come to our competitions and our championships that are not happening. So there is a great loss on all of our levels, even as a staff member, not being able to do what we do. If we're not a sports agency, how are we all functioning? So you kind of deal with those ebbs and flows from a staff side, from the constituent side, volunteers, and of course on the donor side. Well, how do I plug in? So since we have been relying so much on Zoom and putting a lot of programming behind this virtual sense, we also realize that we don't know if we are really reaching every athlete in the mode that makes sense for them. We don't know how many don't have access to the internet. We don't know how many are actually reading our emails, if at all. So instead of guessing, let's engage our community behind us, those who can't coach because we can't gather, those who are used to being on the field during competitions but are missing that. Let's rally our troops and ask, can you call every athlete? So we put together a big campaign, and we're still in it. We put together, and the big thing too as well is sharing information, right? So it's good for our volunteers who are already cleared to receive that. But this is also a great way of engaging a new level of volunteers, right? Just because we aren't able to do what we do doesn't mean we cannot continue our volunteer recruitment. So we have we put together a whole training and a confidentiality waiver and whatnot. And now we're even able to engage our sponsors that would normally be at summer games or whatnot, and or have supported us in a different way. Now they have a tangible way of the greatest gift of all, and that is interacting with their athletes. So we were tasked with recruiting at least 100 volunteers, and I'm proud to say that we have about 168 right now. And a lot of those are our coaches as well, but also a bunch from, you know, different sponsors and just people saying, well, heck yeah, I'm not doing anything. What can I do? So they get a list of list of athletes, and they're helping us conduct a survey. Most importantly, it's that wellness check. How are you? Can I ask you a few questions? Trying to make it as easy as possible on them. But it's for them, they're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Or it's something that they can do on their own time. They have the whole month to make these calls. And so we've been able to bring in a new wave of volunteers. And the most important step is making sure we're appreciating these folks. So at the end of this campaign, what are we doing special for them? And how are we inviting them to continue their service with us? Because especially within the philanthropy side of things, those who give their time will give 10 times more in dollars than those who just give money. So it's real important for us to remain relevant within the community. And obviously we can't function without volunteers. There is no Special Olympics without our coaches, without any of it. So what we do know is we need to be really better communicators with our existing volunteer base, because there's still some challenges of trying to translate. Well, I'm usually on the field for softball. If I'm not a softball coach, what am I supposed to do? How do you do that over Zoom? And we're all trying to figure that all out. So, but the best thing to do is to really make sure that we are giving them space and time to answer our questions and to provide their own ideas. And I know I've been a part of a lot of organizations and experience it a little bit here where I am, where there are some staff members who think that they're the experts and they know what our volunteers want, or they know what our athletes need. And guess what? They're not asking the people who actually have the information. So you never know what you're going to get if you don't ask. Some of our some of our staff members, because they just asked of like, what do you guys think? Like what can we do to keep our athletes engaged? What are your ideas? And out of left field, that was a sport reference. I don't sport, so I get really excited when I do that. There's somebody who turns out is a karaoke leader and does a whole virtual karaoke league and has offered that service to our volunteers. And now we've got like all these new Zoom meetings, birthday clubs. People are more in touch with their athletes and their volunteers now with the pandemic than they were beforehand. Now, of course, that's also because they're not distracted doing, their everyday job, right? When there are competitions, they're out there doing what needs to be done. So we really have been able to make some incredible strides. But there's always, now that things are quiet, in a sense, you can also start seeing the things that were challenges before, and now they're either screaming at like, oh, this is still a challenge, or, okay, we've been able to find a new solution. So I'm going to stop talking for a little bit to see if there are any specific, and I'm taking a look at the email that was sent out with the kind of the bullet points that we thought we might touch base on, but I'm curious if you guys have ways that you are engaging volunteers right now that is working really well within the pandemic. And if you don't, that's okay. And then also want to touch base on, what are the ideas that we're doing now that will take us beyond COVID as well. So I'm going to mute myself, and Jody, you're in the center of my screen. So I'm just going to ask you if you have anything, if that's okay.
Sure, why not? Lucky me in the center, right? Just kidding. Thank you so much. And I'm trying to think what's working well, right? That was really your question, what we're doing in terms of staying engaged. Since I kind of oversee, or I shouldn't even say oversee, I work with a wonderful team of probably about 10 very consistent volunteer community educators for the association. And really all of them are kind of at different degrees of experience, I guess you could say. I think during COVID, I think we've had an increased connection. I think what I just done personal, it may sound silly and sort of, I guess nothing too big, no great shakes, but just, I just try to make time for conversations with them, once a week or so. We at the association are really trying to work across the nation, I think, on having mission conversations, as they're calling them, and whatever the term is, I think just kind of understanding where they're at and where they want to go with their role, I think. And that's been something we've just started that I think has been effective. And I think it really combines their interest in what they want to do as a volunteer, but also what else they want to get out of it. So it's certainly community focused while also being personally focused for them. And I think we have a ways to go with it, but so far it seems to be a good addition for us, I would say. Yeah, is that helpful?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jody. And I think, a lot of what you said too, that I think we all have a great opportunity is how are we going to be following up, right? So those types of conversations, whether that type of stuff should always be happening, but it's also the thing that's the easiest to let go when things come up.
Absolutely,
so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jody.
You.
Hi, Michael. I'm Melinda. Would you kindly share, Chapman University, will you tell us your role and how you're utilizing volunteers right now?
Yes, and I'm sorry for joining late and also leaving myself unmuted when I was getting ready for this meeting. So the way I engage with, it's the Zoom, I guess, environment. The way I engage with volunteers is I'm actually been just positioned at Chapman as a central volunteer liaison for the entire community.
Wow.
And so they want me to undergo and create a well-structured volunteer program that is geared towards alumni, parents, community members, friends of the university who have no affiliation, students. And so it is a big undertaking. So I've been in the position for just a little over a year. And that first year was just really learning how does every individual department interact with volunteers. I think in every organization, they say we're not a siloed organization, but that's sometimes a myth and sometimes over glorified. So that first year was just using my personal touch and being everyone's best friend, or at least acquaintance, and learning what they have and really not letting them know I'm going to take over. I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to be your boss, because nobody likes to hear that. But at the same time saying, how can I help your efforts? So how are we engaging? I'm going off of your question. How are we engaging your volunteers right now is really kind of just saying, letting them know there's still ways for you to still stay connected and still ways for you to be a part of the university regardless. I think the alumni engagement team under Bill Guzik and Andy Doddridge, they do an amazing job of connecting with our alumni, especially with this past homecoming event. But my goal is really to see how are we stewarding our volunteers, and is there supporting documentation for campus partners who only interact with volunteers on a one-off base. And so, so I'm still in the early incubation period and go from there. So did I answer that one first question? I think we just started with that first question,
Yeah,
right?
you did great. Thank you, Michael. It's nice to meet you.
I have to ask a question just because I'm so curious. Are you replacing someone? Is this done normally in the university setting, or are you doing, is this like an expansion of stuff that you've already done?
So I originally started with university under parent engagement office. And so that's under university advancement. So I'm under the university advancement pillar. It's an extension of their efforts of saying, can we centralize the experience of all volunteers? And do we have someone that's their main role, to ensure all volunteers?
Are the
So
volunteers
it's a new
mostly
role.
fundraising, or are they doing other things too?
So
I can't handle, I'm in the Boston University Leadership Committee. I keep co-opting these nonprofit conversations. I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, you and I could always meet, because I'm always looking for individuals who are there in very similar roles or very similar.
Well, I'm not in a role.
fields.
I guess I'm a volunteer, but it always seems like they want to volunteer me to raise money. I have never been offered to volunteer for anything else.
So no, that I would say under my current leadership, we are not asking volunteers to raise money. We are asking volunteers to obviously offer their money if they would like to and do so. But our goal is to raise their affinity for the university and their kind of connection to the university, because we know ultimately all of us have our own passion. If our passion was to turn to us and say, hey, we need more help, we would be like, sure, this is what else we could do. So I think our end goal is to have a group of, I guess it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to support an organization. And that's what we need to raise right now. And that's the intention of this program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. It's coming to me now. Yeah. What a lot of work. Oh my gosh.
I just smile.
And I mean that for all of you. I go, oh my gosh, how do
Oh,
you
it's true.
do it? I don't, and I keep thinking we've got all the resources in the world, and the COVID, remoteness is so hard. How do you do it? What you're doing right now, and even just the efficacy you've had is just amazing to me. Like, I can't get over it. I'm such a slug. I'm just such a slug.
I'm a banana slug, so I can relate to that. But
No, that's my other passion. I'm so sorry. This is all about me today. Yeah, no, I I endowed a fund in coastal sustainability at UC Santa Cruz. So
Awesome.
So I go there a lot. So that's an awesome school. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I think, when it comes to COVID and recruitment, I think there was a lot of hesitation and a lot of fear around that in the beginning. I personally am finding it very easy to find volunteers. What is more challenging is finding volunteers for the right projects that make sense, that are impactful, right? Not just for the sake of, it was in the beginning, it was, we're not accepting volunteers, we're done, go away. And now it's like, okay, let's figure out how we can do that. Jody, I saw that you unmuted. Do you have something?
No, I just actually was wanting to, sometimes I'll say, oh yes, thank you, or something. I don't know. Just, I probably should stay on mute, be better.
No, you're fine. You're great. Virginia, can you share with us how you are working with volunteers and how that's going?
Absolutely. So at Grandma's House, because we are we're homeless shelters for the main part, and we're serving food to low-income families, we have seen our the need for our services has just grown since COVID has hit. So, and we couldn't do what we did without volunteers in person. So we had to think how we could get volunteers in here safely within the CDC guidelines, within the requirements. And so we've made it an outside project, especially for like packing our Nana's kids bags. We went from 300 bags a month to over 3,000 bags a month. And I need an army of volunteers to put that kind of thing together. So we've moved outside, we've set up long tables, everybody wears a mask, most of the groups that we have come are friends, family, or people that are already social distancing together. So that seems to work out well. And we've limited to very few numbers. But I have volunteers come in twice a week, every week, just to get the number of bags that I need. And then we've also taken on volunteers as drivers. So they actually go to our partner sites to hand out our bags and things like that. So we are still engaging with volunteers. We are one of the few, I guess, nonprofits that allow volunteers in to do hands-on, but we're very conscious of how we allow them to volunteer. We are not allowing volunteers into our shelters still. So unfortunately we've allowed like people like to buy a meal or make a meal. So we don't allow homemade meals anymore. We have them go to a restaurant or something that we know is COVID approved, CDC approved, and they can order dinner and we will deliver it, or we will have it delivered or something like that. So we're still getting the volunteers to participate with our houses and our programs, but it's just a much different way. We also provide a very long list of virtual events that help our clients and individuals, mostly for the holidays. I think I have a 2-page list of holiday virtual events that people can do. The other thing that has just grown is the in-kind donations. We post on our website and we post on 10C different things that we need. And I think right now people are looking for ways to give. They might not have the funds, but hey, they can clean out their pantry and give food. So we get a lot more in kind. And I have to give kudos to Disney. I know they're not open, but boy, are they donating. We've gotten $40,000 worth of donations from Disney alone. The people want to give, they want to provide, but we just have to do it a whole different way. So yeah, that's our biggest challenge, is finding ways to support our volunteers that do want to come here. I do have still some community service from court appointed that need to finish their hours. So we're very conscious of making sure that they get those hours and do it safely. And we're following all the guidelines. So that's our biggest challenge, I guess, is just making sure we can support everybody who wants to volunteer, but still do it safely within the CDC guidelines.
Oh, I'd really admire what you've been doing so far. I think that's the piece that takes longer for maybe some of the larger organizations or the ones who don't have their head in the game, but to really be able to clearly define, this is how you can support us. Here's the list. Here's what this looks like. Having that information ready and able, because again, people are ready. And especially we're 8 months in, I think people are getting just tired and they want to get going, and we certainly want that. We want it to be safe. So I think it sounds like you've got a really great system in order. And I know, from the organization I used to work with, their meal delivery program is up by 250%.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
And and when you think about it, like all of these things that you guys have just mentioned, as far as, we're utilizing volunteers as drivers, or now we're doing this. All of this stuff happens during normal times. And I'm going to stop using the air quotes because we'll never get back there. But it's almost like COVID has helped us escalate it, or just be way more intentional. And that's, I'm trying so hard. And I know Robin and I have talked about this before, of just finding the gratitude in all this, because I'll be damned. Are we growing? Are we getting stronger? Are we getting smarter because of all of this? Like, what will I have to show after this is over? But I do think seeing how resilient our industry is, seeing how much the community relies on our sector, and it's more than just our sector, right? I mean, Michael, you mentioned it's a community. What I hold in my heart is a community is too heavy to carry alone. That it doesn't take one person, doesn't take one industry, doesn't take one sector, doesn't take one organization. We're all in this together. And I feel like, you know, that those emotions and that pride really comes out even more of like, all right, I now have the right mindset to go out to the community and say, you want to be a part of our cause. And I have, again, that smile is going to help more than like, I don't know, we can't get together, but hopefully you can do something, you know, like with the right attitude. And hopefully that attitude can be shared with our peers in our own organization, because a lot of the struggles that I was facing in the beginning had to do with staff getting ready, right? Like, again, I can recruit 180 people, but if they don't have a clear path, a clear training, a clear anything, it is a waste of everybody's time, and a bad reputation goes further in the community, or bad experience goes further in the community than a positive one. So it's, you know, some of that is like, more of that is getting louder of like, no, I'm not bringing you volunteers because you haven't done X, Y, Z yet.
Can
And
I tell you an experience I had when
Please.
we brought in a nonprofit that the bank, you know, strongly wants to support, and they had this thing you had to do to get to be a volunteer, and it literally asked me for more than an employment application, which I understand, but I literally shut it down, and I keep getting all these emails, and I'm like, I don't have time for your application. So, you know, but I think it's exactly right. Like that, my experience now is great organization is that I failed at their application process. That's my experience, that I'm not, never mind being worthy of getting accepted into the program. I wasn't worthy enough of getting through the application. And I don't have a negative experience. I just don't have a ability to help because it's too hard.
I agree. I know as one of those organizations that has a robust application process dictated by the mothership of Special Olympics International, all of that. So there's not much we can do, but hearing again and again of like, I don't want to refer my friends to be a coach. I can't spend the amount of time it takes.
Well, you know, the only thing that I'm realizing now is I'm going to reach out and say, is there anyone who can help me? Is there anything I can do? Or just because I just think maybe it's me, it's definitely me. But maybe it's because I'm picking the wrong one. Like maybe I should be, do you know what I mean? Maybe it was too much. I don't know.
Well, if
I think I'd be great at it if I get through the application process. I know I would be good at it.
But I think if you're experiencing that, there are others that are as well. So that's really good feedback for people that manage volunteers to realize that, yes, we have processes that we have to put in place. You know, we're business. Just because we're a nonprofit doesn't mean we're subject to, you know, all the issues that another business has. But we need to be available to help make that process an engaging one and an interesting one and an easy one.
I think you're right, because I got these emails saying they updated their system and that they please try again. Like, so I think they probably got some feedback that maybe the system itself, but if you think about it, all our systems, all our processes were pre-COVID. So everyone's doing their best to try to move it, but it's not like, I wonder in the future, will everything be on? I mean, we're going to probably be a lot better about engaging in multiple modalities, I would imagine, but this is new stuff. So, you know, I'm sure they were trying to figure it all out too at the same time.
You know, one of the assignments I give to my students in my class and to any new staff member that I work with is to kind of audit your organization or somebody else's as far as what does the volunteer journey look like. So go on the website, take a look. Is it easy to find out? Is it easy to figure out how to volunteer? What does the application look like? If you were to say, I'm interested, do you get a call back? Why or why not? Like what? And we do a whole dossier, a whole thing of evaluating what that system looks like. And that for the entire course, is an online course, so it's not a big deal. They have to attend a volunteer training or an orientation and kind of audit that as well. All a matter of like, look, just like you're interviewing and researching for employment, your orientation, your onboarding starts when you interview, when you express interest. And if we don't even have a clear button of this is how you volunteer and this is how it's laid out, missed opportunity. And I think with COVID as well, again, we're able to add this more personal touch, like you were talking about, Jody, a personal touch with any of our interested candidates. Now we have a Zoom interview. We say like, hey, let me just talk to you about, let me show you what this is going to look like. Let me get to know you first. instead of during busy times when we might get 150 volunteer applications in a single month. And you can just say like, thanks, okay, like everything was done via email, which for me coming in from the social service agency of like, you guys aren't interviewing, you guys are not having, like these people are with unsupervised with people, but the sheer number, I get it, you know, everybody's making it work. But what I'm grateful for is with COVID is there is now a more intentional way of working with volunteers from the moment they express interest to how we can get them matched with whatever project they are in. And I had a coworker recently attended training that is available. It is free, I believe. It was by Sterling Volunteers, one of the leading background checks. And I think it was Beth Steinhorn, who's one of my favorite people in the world, in the volunteer engagement world, because I'm a nerd and I follow people like that. But so they had a whole training on, you know, how are you engaging volunteers in this new virtual setting? And what the key takeaway that I really liked, and I'm hoping that we can actually move forward, is to add an element of celebration. So when a volunteer completes that application process, completes whatever step, and they have chosen your organization and want to join your team, that requires a celebration. There's got to be some pomp and circumstance we can put in there. If it's as simple as a shout out on your social media, which I heard from a coach, the most important thing to do is if you do mention somebody's social media, you should tag them, because then that will go onto their network. I don't know anything about social media, if it's quite obvious about that, but these tricks of the trade. So the way, whatever we can do to say, hey, welcome Coach Harry Potter to our Quidditch team. We're so excited you're here. I have some staff members who, when there's a new coach, they, at the first day of practice, they'll introduce the coach to one athlete and then whisper to the athlete, hey, your job right now is to make sure that every single athlete meets this new coach. And then you've got this now buddy where that athlete is going at it and he's so excited and the coach feels amazing because look at this attention and, you know, really drawing that heart of this is why I'm here. Now that's in normal times. In this time, you know, we're trying to figure out how we're expecting maybe only 75% of our coaches to return when we return to the field. So how are we going to up our numbers? We're going to do some bring a friend night, an info session before the season starts. How are we going to use Zoom and introduce the new volunteers to an experienced volunteer, kind of a mentorship, or just make sure like, hey, you're part of this special group. Let's celebrate that. You are part of this cohort. Anything that makes them feel like they are really part of something special, they're going to stay with you the whole time. And then you got to make sure to recognize. So listening when you're introducing somebody. I mean, I use Outlook. It's like a live and die by Outlook, which I'm sure there are way better systems for me to be using. But I'll put in notes and a reminder in 2 weeks saying, oh, Robin mentioned that her grandchild had a birthday or something. And then I'll, you know, reach out and say, hey, hope you're doing well, happy birthday. And that little touch, and I think this is true for just making friends, I think. So it's not unique to anything about volunteerism, but I think when we've been able to make strides was when we're able to convince the rest of our organization that these are, thank you, these volunteers are not, the word just should never go in front of volunteer. There's no such thing as, oh, well, you're just a volunteer. How to just minimize the impact that person makes. These people are dedicated to our mission and our cause, and everybody is a supporter. And the more you can make them aware of what they are doing, the more that they will more likely take out their checkbook if you invite them to do so, or attend our event, or, you know, create their own sense of community. All right, it is 4:43, and I want to stop and see where we are. And Robin, tell me what to do.
I think we're good. We have a new person, Savannah. I see Savannah on there. Did we scare her away already?
I was talking a long time. It's quite possible.
No. Maybe she just stepped away. No, I'd say let's just keep going. But I would like to add a couple things. You know, it's funny, we talk about just, and we had a whole discussion today around imposter syndrome and how when you use the word just, it really it minimizes your whole message. And I use it a lot. And I realize that I use it in my email a lot. And it's something that I'm really going to be more intentional about. But I think it's really interesting with regards to volunteerism, because I work with people a lot, do a lot of coaching with cover letters and resume writing. And I get a lot of people that say, well, I've just got experience in, you know, this industry and I don't have experience here. And I always will say, let's talk about your volunteer experience. It could be faith-based. It could be, you work at the local animal shelter, whatever it might be. And let's take those transferable skills and let's get you a job. And I can't tell you how much after this discussion, people realize the experiences that they have. And they say, oh, well, I was just a volunteer, or I just interned, or I did this in college, or, oh, I just help out. It's not a big deal. And they don't realize the benefit to all of the organizations, both monetarily and, just from capacity. You can't hire that kind of staff. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, that I'm glad that you mentioned it as far as being just a volunteer. And then another thing, we forget that our board members are volunteers, and they need a lot of special care as well. So when I was in the volunteer management world, because that is what I used to do way back in the day, we used to say it was, recruiting, retaining, and recognizing volunteers. And that all three of those were so important. We need them. So you recruit, you're out there doing social media or whatever campaign you might have, and then recognize the heck out of it. Melinda, I love the idea of the small celebrations, finishing the application, attending the first orientation, whatever it might be, just celebrate. And then it's another thing to retain them and to keep them happy, checking in on them on a regular basis. So I just want us, those of you that do not report to the board but interact with the board, just don't forget that the board needs that special attention as well.
Yeah, and absolutely using the board as your volunteer advocates as well. If the more they know of, like, wow, we need 45 more coaches, why wouldn't you go to the board to let them know? And that also helps make the case and puts your story to the front of the agenda. So I'm pleased that for Special Olympics this year, this was going to be the year, it still is the year, but that the one priority of SOSC was volunteer recognition, recruitment, and retention. The one goal, which is huge for a sports organization. So it was really exciting. Now, of course, this year almost doesn't count, but it will continue to be. And now it is on the board agenda every single time they meet of where are we, what are our numbers, doing our needs assessment. So taking it as a strategic choice and being deliberate in how we deliver that information. I think it's really hard for especially people in volunteer engagement, but I'm sure for many individuals in the sector, to be able to tell our story. And our story is more than, I needed 12 volunteers and I got 12 volunteers and they donated 6 hours each. There's no value or no heart in that whatsoever. But to say, we had this was our goal was to deliver this many packages to homebound older adults. We don't know how we're going to do it. And we've been able to achieve that goal by recruiting 45 volunteers who delivered 12 packages each. Like that, those are the metrics. Those are the stories. You'll never meet a volunteer to say, what are you most proud of in your volunteer time? I donated 400 hours this year. That means nothing, right? So there, and I'm sure I can go on and on about that, and I will not, I'll get off that. So
no, it's so good. And it's speaking vision and excitement into what you do. It's been said, it's boring to talk about your mission, but it's exciting to talk about your vision because that's future. So when you talk about, like you said, the hours, okay, I gave 20 hours. That's exciting, pat, pat, pat. But like you said, when you talk about what that 20 hours could do, and, next year my goal is to do this and do that, that's very exciting. And that's when you get other people that then want to join the bandwagon and say, I want to volunteer for Special Olympics. I had no idea that I'd get to do that and have that impact. Yeah. And as I shared with the last time, Melinda, that you were on there, we are in the nonprofit world, so we get those feel-good moments all the time. We get that experience. But for people that are not touching a product or touching, an experience, they don't get that all the time. They might be working in a retail store, or they might be working in a financial institution, or they might be, moving some papers around. No offense, Janet, I love what you do. But it's like you don't get to see the child that gets to run the race on a daily basis, where Melinda gets to have joyful moments all the time outside of COVID. So we're giving that opportunity to people that don't get to do that on a regular basis. And to me, you can't put a price tag on that.
Well said. I think as we are approaching the holiday season and Giving Tuesday, and just with the state of the economy and all of that, there are obviously going to be even more competition for raising funds on the nonprofit level. So I really encourage you guys to include volunteerism as a way to give during this season. whether it is an in-kind donation or an hour of your time making one phone call for whatever organization, but that is a way to at least plant the seed for future giving as well. But that's, I think things are going to start a lot sooner this year. We already had an earlier version of Giving Tuesday when COVID hit. So I'm very curious to see how that all plays out, but 'tis the season, and more people, especially as they're feeling isolated with COVID, they're looking for more ways to just create something worthy, right? What's my purpose going to be right now? And you guys can provide that purpose. And to invite the supporters so that the bank has something they can do. Hey, if you guys want to send cards, holiday cards to athletes, I'll get you all set up, whatever you want. But this is a really great opportunity. And we also have that pause where we can look at how we are training our volunteers. This world of virtualness in the volunteer world, it's not new. It's been happening all along. It just has more limelight and more technology and a lot of fear around that technology. So the more we can be better educated, and I'm constantly trying to learn the newest thing on Zoom, and I have not mastered it at all, but I will continue to try. But the more we can be creative, and just also, I think just not only giving them reason to be a part of something bigger, but just to provide some joy, like Robin mentioned, and some playfulness. I think we're all in the market for that, right? Let's just have some fun. If it's a matter of thanking some volunteers, do a Zumba class. I don't know if that's one actually, but know what your volunteers need and put in that personal touch so that they're going to be ready for 2021 and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to support Alzheimer's this year. So whatever it may be.
Love it. Melinda, you're always just a breath of fresh air. I just love your approach, and your organization is so lucky to have you. Because I'm sure your enthusiasm, is shared with your volunteers, and I'm sure they feel very loved and supported and appreciated.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So if there are no other questions, again, just thank you to all of you. Again, this will be recorded, so check our YouTube channel and share it with anybody that you want. We're excited to always have Melinda here, and maybe we'll do something in another couple months as we get closer to the holidays. Maybe we can do another thing on engaging volunteers during the holidays, because I can't believe it's going to be November in like a week. It's just, somebody asked me this morning what month we were in, and I had to take a minute to think about it. So crazy times. But anyway, thank you, everybody. Janet, thank you again, First Republic. We're so grateful for you. And be well, everybody. Next week, a plug to Janet. Janet's going to jump on a call and provide some information on the PPP loans and forgiveness. So if people in your organization that's an area of interest to them, please make sure that they know that next week we will have another Fieldstone4U with Janet leading the charge. So thank you, everybody.
To say, I'd welcome another one of these too again. That'd be great. So
good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Melinda.
Thank you. All
Nice
right,
to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you all. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.